Welcome to our YouTube channel, The Alien Tales, and please ensure that you have subscribed.
Our last kiss, our first fight, our wedding day, the day she crash-landed on Earth. Memory works differently for her species. She remembers our future and forgets our past. I'm documenting before I disappear from her mind. The cursor blinks on my screen like a dying star. Outside, Portland's rain drums against my apartment window with the persistence of time itself. Relentless, indifferent. My name is Dane Holloway, and I'm 28 years old, though I feel ancient tonight. I'm documenting our story before Seralynn forgets I ever existed. Her species, the Threnari, experience memory in reverse chronological order. What happened yesterday fades like morning mist, while tomorrow's possibilities burn bright as supernovas in her mind. She remembers our wedding day perfectly, every detail of a ceremony that hasn't happened yet. She recalls our first fight with startling clarity, though it's still months away. But our first kiss? The moment that changed everything? It's already becoming a ghost in her memory. The doctors at the Xenobiology Institute explained it with charts and graphs, cold scientific terminology that couldn't capture the heartbreak of loving someone who forgets you a little more each day. Temporal memory displacement, they called it. An evolutionary adaptation to their planet's unique time dilation fields. I call it torture. Seralynn sits across from me now, her iridescent skin shifting from pearl to soft lavender in the lamplight. Her three-chambered heart beats in that distinctive rhythm I've memorized, loob-dub-dub, loob-dub-dub, like a song I'll never hear again once she forgets. She's reading one of my old journals, the ones I started writing when we first met, her elongated fingers tracing words about adventures her mind can no longer access. "Tell me about the day we met," she whispers, her voice carrying harmonics that make my chest ache. I can almost see it, but it's so distant. I close my eyes and begin our story. 3 months ago, I was just another graduate student trudging through my astrophysics dissertation. The Pacific Northwest Observatory had become my second home, its massive telescope my window to distant worlds I'd never touch. That Tuesday night in March started like any other. Coffee gone cold, equations swimming before tired eyes, the universe vast and indifferent above. Then the sky caught fire. At first, I thought it was a meteor. The streak of blue-white light arced across the constellation Cassiopeia with impossible grace, too controlled to be random space debris. My instruments went haywire, electromagnetic readings spiking beyond anything I'd recorded. The object decelerated as it approached Earth's atmosphere, defying every law of physics I'd spent years studying. It crashed in the Columbia River Gorge, the impact tremor reaching the observatory 30 miles away. While emergency services mobilized, I made a decision that would reshape my existence. I grabbed my equipment and headed for the crash site. The forest was eerily silent when I arrived. Ancient firs stood like sentinels around a perfect circle of fused sand and twisted metal. In the center lay something that stole my breath. Not the wreckage I'd expected, but a vessel of impossible beauty. Its hull curved like a nautilus shell, surfaces that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. Steam rose from the craft's opening as I approached, my Geiger counter clicking nervously. That's when I saw her. Seralynn, unconscious and impossibly graceful even in distress. Her skin shimmered between colors I had no names for, and her breathing was labored but unmistakably alive. I should have called for help, should have backed away and let the authorities handle first contact with an alien species. Instead, I knelt beside her and whispered, "Hey, it's okay. You're safe now." Her eyes opened, gold-flecked with stardust, and she spoke her first words in perfect English. "You're going to ask me to marry you in 47 days. Seralynn's first week on Earth passed in a blur of medical examinations and government interviews. They housed her at the Cascade Research Facility, a sterile complex that felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. As the civilian who'd found her, I was granted supervised visitation rights, 3 hours daily, always with Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell monitoring every interaction. During those carefully orchestrated meetings, I learned the impossible truth about Seralynn's condition. She'd describe our future conversations with unnerving accuracy, recounting arguments we hadn't had and intimate moments that made me blush in front of the researchers. Yet she struggled to remember what we'd discussed the day before. "My people evolved on Threenox," she explained during our fifth session, her voice carrying that musical quality that made my pulse quicken. Our planet orbits a neutron star binary. The gravitational time distortions shaped our neural development over millions of years. We experience memory in reverse. The further away an event is in our past, the dimmer it becomes. But the future burns bright as starfire. Dr. Hartwell scribbled notes furiously. How far into the future can you perceive? It varies, Seralynn said, her gaze finding mine across the sterile interview room. Strong emotional events create stronger temporal echoes. I can see our wedding day clearly, September 23rd, in the rose garden behind your apartment building. You'll wear your father's navy suit, and I'll have learned to control my chromatic responses enough to maintain a steady pearl white throughout the ceremony. My heart stuttered. Wedding day, she smiled, and her skin shifted to a warm golden hue. You're going to propose in 39 days. You've been carrying your grandmother's ring in your pocket for a week now. Even though you haven't consciously decided to buy it yet, I instinctively patted my jacket pocket. Empty, of course. But her words sent a chill through me, because I had been thinking about my grandmother's ring lately. It was still locked in my father's safe in Seattle, but I'd been remembering how it looked on her finger, wondering if it was still there. This is impossible, I whispered. Seralynn's expression grew sad, her skin fading to a mournful blue. For you, yes. For me, it's just another kind of loneliness. 2 weeks into our strange courtship, though she'd argue we were courting backward, Seralynn was granted permission to leave the facility under my supervision. The government had determined she posed no threat, and Dr. Hartwell believed that normal social interaction might help her adapt to Earth's linear time experience. Our first real date was a disaster and a revelation. I took her to Powell's books, thinking the quiet atmosphere might be comfortable. Instead, she wandered the aisles in obvious distress, her skin cycling through rapid color changes, deep purple to silver to red to green, like a broken mood ring. I can't focus, she said, her voice strained. Every book contains futures I might read, conversations we might have about them. The possibilities are overwhelming. I led her outside, and she immediately calmed in the open air. Her skin settled into a soft amber that reminded me of honey in sunlight. Better, she breathed. Enclosed spaces amplify the temporal echoes. Too many potential futures branching from single moments. We walked through Laurelhurst Park instead, following paths that seemed to ease her distress. I watched her interact with the world, touching tree bark with wonder, tilting her face toward the sun like a flower seeking light. She was alien yet familiar, strange yet somehow perfectly suited to my world. Tell me about your future, I said as we sat by the pond. What do you see when you look at me? Her skin shimmered to deep rose, and she was quiet for a long moment. I see you learning to braid my hair in the human style for our wedding. I see you holding me during the panic attacks when my memories start fragmenting. I see you crying when you realize I've forgotten our first kiss. When do I realize that? Tonight, she whispered. When you ask me about it, and I can't remember anymore. We sat in silence, watching ducks navigate the pond with simple purpose. I wanted to ask her about the kiss, but suddenly I was terrified. If she'd already forgotten it, would asking about it hurt her? Would it hurt me more? Dane, she said softly. In my future memory, you asked me anyway. That evening, back at my apartment, I made coffee while Seralynn explored the space that would supposedly become our shared home. She moved through the rooms with familiarity, adjusting the position of my desk lamp, moving books from one shelf to another. You rearrange everything after we move in together, she explained, noticing my confusion. You say it helps you think when things are in their proper places. I handed her a mug, our fingers brushing in the exchange. Her skin flickered with brief silver at the contact, and I felt that familiar electric thrill. When do we move in together? Next month. After our first fight, you realize you don't want to spend another night apart. She sipped the coffee and smiled. You finally figure out how I like it. 2 sugars. A splash of that vanilla creamer you think is too sweet. I'd made it black the way I drank mine, but I watched her doctor it exactly as she described, and it tasted perfect on her lips when she kissed me. When we broke apart, I gathered my courage. Seralynn, Tell me about our first kiss. Her expression grew distant, confused. Her skin cycled through several colors before settling on a troubled gray. First kiss, the day we met, in the forest. You said, I remember the forest, she interrupted, her voice uncertain. The crash, the pain, waking up to see you. But, she pressed her palms against her temples, her skin deepening to charcoal. I can't see it clearly anymore. Was there a kiss? My heart cracked. In 3 weeks, she'd forgotten the moment that had changed everything for me. The kiss had been tentative, barely more than a brush of lips, but it had ignited something profound between us. Now it existed only in my memory. Yes, I said simply. There was a kiss, she nodded, accepting the truth of something she couldn't remember. Tell me what it was like, as I described the moment. Her lips soft and alien against mine, the way her skin had glowed pearl white with what I'd later learn was deep contentment. I saw her future memory engaging. She was comparing my words to things she remembered about us, building a bridge between her fading past and her brilliant future. I'll forget tonight too, won't I? She asked. Eventually, her skin shifted to determined gold. Then we'd better make it worth remembering while I can. 5 weeks later, I stood in my father's study in Seattle, staring at my grandmother's engagement ring. The antique setting held a simple solitaire diamond that had witnessed 60 years of marriage, 2 wars, the birth of 5 children, and a love story that ended only when death forced them apart. She's not human, son, my father said from the doorway, his voice carefully neutral. No, she's not. The government people who called, they said her condition is permanent, that she'll never remember your history together. I turned the ring over in my palm, feeling its weight. I know, Dad. Then why? Because I loved her. Because in the 6 weeks since she'd crashed into my world, she'd become the center of my universe. Because when she looked at me with those star-flecked eyes and described our future with such certainty, I wanted that future more than my next breath. Because she's worth it, I said simply. My father was quiet for a long moment. Then, your mother forgot everything at the end. The Alzheimer's took it all, our wedding day, the kids' births, my name. But I never doubted that I loved her. Even when she didn't remember loving me back, I pocketed the ring and hugged him. Thanks, Dad. The drive back to Portland gave me time to rehearse a speech I'd never give. Seralynn already knew what I was going to say, how I was going to say it, and what her answer would be. The proposal was a formality for the benefit of linear time, but I wanted it to be perfect anyway. I found her in our favorite spot by the Laurelhurst Pond, feeding ducks with bread she'd brought from home. Her skin was soft amber in the afternoon light, peaceful and content. You're 12 minutes early, she said without turning around. In my memory, you arrive at 3:47 and spend 3 minutes working up the courage. I sat beside her and pulled out the ring. Maybe I'm braver in this timeline. She turned to me, her skin shifting to brilliant gold, and I saw tears in her alien eyes. Oh, Dane, this is beautiful. Your grandmother had excellent taste. How do you... I started, then stopped. Of course she knew. She remembered our entire future together. Seralynn Korathi of the Thranari, I said formally. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Her skin blazed like sunrise. Yes, Dane Holloway of Earth. I will marry you on September 23rd in the rose garden behind your apartment building. I will wear a dress the color of starlight, and you will cry when I walk toward you because I'll be the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. She was right, of course. She was always right about our future. Summer passed in a blur of wedding preparations and adaptation. Seralynn moved into my apartment officially, though she'd been spending most nights there anyway. Watching her navigate human customs was like observing an anthropologist's study of fascinating but puzzling culture. She approached our relationship with the detached curiosity of someone who knew the ending but had to experience the middle chapters for the first time. It created an odd dynamic. She could predict my moods and reactions with uncanny accuracy, but she was constantly surprised by the small, day-to-day realities of cohabitation. You're going to be annoyed with me tonight, she announced one morning over breakfast, her skin a preemptive apologetic pink. Why? I accidentally break your favorite coffee mug. The blue one with the observatory logo. I glanced at the mug in question, sitting safely in the cabinet. How do you accidentally break something when you know it's going to happen? She looked genuinely confused. I don't understand the mechanism. I just remember that it breaks, and that you're upset because it was a gift from your mentor. Dr. Hartwell had explained this paradox during one of our sessions. Seralynn could see future events clearly, but she experienced them without the context of causality. She knew what would happen but not why or how to prevent it. Sure enough, that evening she knocked the mug off the counter while reaching for a towel. It shattered on the kitchen floor, and I felt the predicted flash of irritation. Not because of the mug itself, but because of the helplessness of living with someone who could see our fights coming but couldn't prevent them. "I'm sorry," she said, her skin cycling through remorseful blues and grays. "I know you're thinking this is impossible. Loving someone who can't learn from mistakes because she experiences them in reverse." I was thinking exactly that, and the accuracy of her prediction made it worse. But then she knelt beside me to help clean up the pieces, and her skin shifted to soft gold. This is when you realize you love me for who I am, not despite her condition. The mug was just ceramic and glaze. But the way you're not angry at me, that's when you understand what forever means. She was right. As I watched her carefully collect the sharp fragments, I felt something settle in my chest. This was my life now. Loving someone who remembered our future perfectly but forgot our past a little more each day. It wasn't the love story I'd imagined, but it was ours. August brought the first of what Dr. Hartwell termed temporal displacement episodes. I came home from the observatory to find Seralynn curled on our couch, her skin cycling rapidly between colors, her breathing shallow and erratic. "Seralynn." I knelt beside her, not sure if I should touch her during whatever this was. "Too many futures," she whispered, her voice fragmented. "They're overlapping. I can see our wedding but also the future where you change your mind. I can see our children but also the timeline where I have to leave Earth. I can see growing old together, but also the moment when you finally forget me too." Her skin was shifting so rapidly it hurt to look at, every color in the spectrum cycling through her translucent flesh like a broken prism. I realized she was having a panic attack, but not about the present. She was panicking about possibilities that might or might not come to pass. "Focus on now," I said, taking her hands. "Feel my hands. Hear my voice. You're safe here in this moment." "The moments are tangling," she gasped. "Past and future bleeding together. I can't tell what's real anymore." Dr. Hartwell had warned me this might happen. As Seralynn spent more time on Earth, her temporal memory system was trying to adapt to linear time, but the process was causing massive cognitive dissonance. She was essentially experiencing temporal vertigo. I did the only thing I could think of. I started reciting the story of our relationship from my perspective, anchoring her to my linear experience of our time together. Our first meeting, our first real conversation, the first time she'd slept over, the morning I'd woken up to find her making pancakes in shapes that wouldn't be invented for another decade. Gradually, her skin settled into a steady pearl white, and her breathing normalized. "Thank you," she whispered. "Sometimes I need your past to make sense of my future." "Will the episodes get worse?" Her skin shifted to honest blue-gray. "Yes, Dr. Hartwell doesn't know this yet, but eventually my temporal memory will fragment completely. I'll remember everything and nothing simultaneously. That's when you'll make the recording." "What recording?" She looked at me with infinite sadness. "The one you're making right now in our kitchen 3 months from now. You'll document our entire relationship so that when I lose myself completely, there will still be evidence that we existed." September 23rd dawned clear and perfect, the kind of Pacific Northwest autumn day that makes you believe in magic. Our wedding was small. Just my family, Dr. Hartwell, a few colleagues from the observatory, and a handful of government officials who'd become oddly protective of Seralynn over the months. She'd been right about everything, of course. I did wear my father's navy suit. She did maintain a steady pearl white throughout the ceremony, though I could see the effort it took her to control her chromatic responses. And I did cry when she walked toward me, because she was indeed the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. But she'd been wrong about one thing. The dress wasn't starlight colored. It was the soft amber of sunset, the exact shade her skin turned when she was truly happy. "I modified the future," she whispered during our first dance, her skin flickering with pleased gold. I wanted to surprise you with something you hadn't seen coming." The reception was a gentle affair, held in the rose garden exactly as she'd predicted. My grandmother's ring caught the light as we cut the cake, and Seralynn laughed when I inevitably got frosting on my nose. But as evening approached, I noticed her skin beginning to fluctuate more rapidly. The temporal displacement episodes had been getting worse, and the stress of the wedding was triggering another one. "The futures are branching," she said quietly as we stood apart from the celebration. "I can see our honeymoon, but also the fight we'll have tomorrow. I can see myself forgetting our wedding day, and you trying to remind me with photographs that won't make sense to me anymore. How long do we have before I forget today? 6 weeks. Before I forget you completely?" Her skin shifted to sorrowful blue. "For months. Maybe 5 if we're lucky." I pulled her close, breathing in the subtle ozone scent of her hair. "Then we'll make them count." As our guests began to leave, I noticed Dr. Hartwell watching us with scientific fascination and human sadness. She'd become genuinely fond of Seralynn over the months, but I could see in her expression that she was already planning the next phase of our story. The documentation project, the memory preservation protocols, the slow goodbye. "Mrs. Holloway," I said, testing out Seralynn's new name. She smiled, her skin blazing gold one last time. "I love the way that sounds. I always have." Now, 3 months later, I sit in our kitchen typing these words while Seralynn sleeps. She had another major episode yesterday, the worst yet. For 6 hours, she experienced every possible future simultaneously, her mind fracturing under the weight of infinite possibilities. When she finally stabilized, she couldn't remember our wedding day anymore. The doctors say her temporal memory system is entering its final phase of breakdown. Soon, she'll exist in a permanent state of temporal displacement, aware of all possible futures, but unable to distinguish between reality and possibility. She'll forget not just our past, but the linear progression of cause and effect that makes human consciousness possible. But she remembers one thing with perfect clarity: the importance of this recording. "You have to document everything," she told me this morning, her skin a determined silver. "When I'm gone, not dead, but lost in the maze of temporal possibilities, this record will be all that proves we existed, that what we had was real. So I'm writing it down. Every moment I can remember, every conversation that shaped us, every small intimacy that won't survive her condition. Our first kiss in the forest, the day she moved in, the way she rearranged my furniture because she'd seen how it should be, the morning I found her making pancakes shaped like constellations that wouldn't exist for centuries. I'm documenting our love story before it disappears entirely from her mind. She's stirring now, her skin cycling through sleepy pastels. In a few minutes, she'll wake up and look at me with polite confusion, not remembering who I am or why I'm in her kitchen. I'll show her this document, and she'll read about a love story that feels like fiction to her fracturing memory. But sometimes, just sometimes, I catch her looking at me with a flicker of recognition. Not memory exactly, but something deeper, as if her heart remembers what her mind has forgotten. Maybe that's enough. Maybe love isn't about remembering every moment, but about choosing each other again and again, even when the past disappears and the future becomes uncertain. Maybe the real romance isn't in the memories we keep, but in the stories we tell to bridge the gap between yesterday and tomorrow. Her eyes are opening now. Golden, star-flecked, beautiful. "Hello," I say, just as I did in the forest 3 months ago. "You're safe now." And she smiles, uncertain but trusting, as if hearing those words for the very first time.